Okay, you've all heard it. You've probably all said it, because I said so. It just feels like the final word, right? A pure assertion of authority. But what if I told you it's also an absolutely fascinating linguistic puzzle? On its own, this phrase is powerful, it's final, and yeah, maybe a little frustrating to hear. But if you look at it from a really strict grammatical perspective, it's actually broken. It is a classic, textbook example of what your English teacher would call a sentence fragment. And that brings us to the big question for today. How can this phrase be so grammatically wrong, yet so communicatively perfect? Is it a mistake we should all be trying to fix? Or is it a powerful tool that we've all just instinctively mastered? Okay, let's dive into this. On one side, you've got the rules of syntax. That's the structure of our sentences. And by those rules, this phrase is a total failure. But on the other side, you've got pragmatics, which is all about how we use language in the real world. And from that angle, it's absolute perfection. We're going to explore both sides of this story. First up, let's put on our grammarian hats and look at the case against the fragment. This is the prescriptive view. You know, the world of strict rules and red pen regulations that you probably remember from school. The foundational rule here is actually pretty simple. A complete sentence needs three things. It needs a subject, the who or what. It needs a verb, the action. And the whole thing has to express a complete thought. You can think of it like an equation. Subject plus verb must equal a complete thought. If you're missing any one of those pieces, well, you don't have a complete sentence. Our phrase, "because I said so," falls into this really specific category of error called a dependent clause fragment. Now, what's so tricky about these is that they almost look complete. I mean, they've got a subject, they've got a verb, but there's one little word in there that changes everything. And that troublemaker is called a subordinating conjunction. Words like because, if, when, they're like little warning signs. They signal that the clause you're introducing is dependent on something else. It just can't stand on its own 2 feet. It's kind of like a trailer that absolutely needs a car to pull it. So here's the crucial point. The phrase, "I said so," is a totally fine sentence all by itself. It's got a subject, I, and a verb, said. Boom, done. But the second you stick "because" on the front, you create this syntactic void. It's suddenly an answer to a question that hasn't been asked within the sentence itself. It's now leaning on some invisible main clause for support. So, according to the rulebook, there are a few ways you can fix this. You could incorporate it into another sentence, like "you'll do it because I said so." You could add missing parts, but that doesn't really work here. Or you could just drop the word "because," and then you're left with a perfectly complete sentence, "I said so." All right, so that's the prosecution's case. But now, let's pivot to the defense. Because in the real world of conversation, language is a totally different game with different rules. This is the pragmatic view. And the key concept here is something called ellipsis. Now, that's just a fancy word for leaving stuff out. And we do it all the time. I mean, constantly in conversation, we do this because we trust that the other person can fill in the blanks based on the context of what we're talking about. It's just efficient. So let's just imagine the full, grammatically correct sentence for a second. A parent might say, "You need to clean your room because I said so." See? Everything's there. The main clause, the dependent clause, all properly connected and happy. But in a real conversation, it's totally different. When a kid asks why, that first part of the sentence, "you have to clean your room," is already completely understood. It's just hanging in the air between them. So the speaker uses ellipsis. They just chop off the redundant part and jump straight to the point. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about being efficient. The way we shorten the phrase gives it a whole new kind of power. It stops being just information and becomes a tool. It's designed to do something. And this is the core idea behind what linguists call speech act theory, the study of how our words actually perform actions. So the primary job of this phrase isn't to explain why. Its real job is to end the conversation. Full stop. It's a speech act of finality. By cutting out that redundant main clause and leaving just the fragment, the speaker makes the statement more forceful, more absolute. The very abruptness of the fragment is the message. It screams, "This discussion is over." So it's a clever, powerful shortcut. But modern linguistics actually takes this idea a step further, arguing that it's not a broken sentence at all. No, it's something else entirely, a feature of our language, not a bug. There's a field called construction grammar, and it suggests that when we use a phrase often enough in a very specific way, it stops being just a collection of separate words. It becomes its own solid unit of meaning, a construction. Our brains literally store it as a single, complete package with its own set of rules. From this perspective, because I said so isn't a broken sentence that's trying to be whole. It's a completely different kind of thing, a non-sentential utterance. It's a legit, standalone piece of communication that doesn't have to play by sentence rules because it exists in its own category with its own specific job to do. So where does that leave us? Let's bring the two sides together and deliver the final verdict on this powerful, powerful little phrase. Okay, here's the final verdict. On one side, you have that prescriptive view. It's a broken piece, a syntactic failure. But on the other, you have the pragmatic view, which says it's a complete and perfect tool, a non-sentential utterance that works because of its context, not in spite of it. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? Well, it's that grammar isn't just one single set of rigid rules. It's a toolbox, and we use different tools for different jobs. In a real conversation, the so-called broken form of "because I said so" isn't a mistake. It's the absolute perfect tool for the job. The form is the function. It's there to signal authority and to end the debate. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This whole deep dive really shows us that language is fluid, it's functional. So think about it. What other grammar rules have you been taught that might not be rules at all, but simply guidelines that change completely depending on the context? Thanks for watching.